Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Franziska. Before we get started, let me just do a quick sound check. So could you please type a yes into the chat box if you can hear me and you can see our slide deck? Can you see the little chat box? So if you can hear me, if you could just type a little yes or type something.
Yep,
Yes.
Lots of yeses coming through. Thanks, guys.
Perfect. So great, let's dive right in. Thank you all again for dialing in. I hope all your friends and families are well and safe. As I said before, my name is Franziska van Höne, and I'm working in the recruitment admissions team here at Oxford Saïd. Today I'm joined by Chris Blues, who's the program manager for social ventures from the Skoll Centre for Social Entrepreneurship. Jonny Thomson, the head of outreach and development from the Oxford Foundry, and Libby Wood, lead program manager, and also our colleague Julia Popp from the Entrepreneurship Centre. And I'm also joined by Samantha White, our marketing manager for the MBA, who you'll hear later on with the questions. Today you're going to hear a bit more about these different departments, what they do, and how MBAs can get involved. You'll also be able to ask any questions you might have, so please type them in the little questions box, and we'll get to them towards the end of the session. And as you can probably see from the slides, we're starting with the Foundry today, so I'll hand over to Jonathan now.
Great, thank you. Hi everyone, nice to meet you all virtually. So yeah, I'm here to tell you a bit about what the Oxford Foundry is and how it can be of support to you when hopefully you become a student here next year. So the Foundry is the University of Oxford's Entrepreneurship Centre. So we're here to support all students from all different disciplines and departments to build entrepreneurial skills and help them to start and grow ventures. Just for a bit of background, so the Foundry is fairly new. So we opened in October 2017, and it was launched by the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, and is supported by Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn and others. But it was an initiative that was really spearheaded by the business school, and the Foundry is sort of seen as the business school's gift to the wider university. So that's sort of the context for you. So our focus really is about building a new generation of ventures and leaders. So this is really about building purpose-driven businesses that are profitable but are also impactful and are tackling some of the big challenges we face in society, not least the COVID-19 pandemic we're experiencing now, but also challenges in healthcare and supply chains, aging populations, and much more. So we focus on two core areas. So one is around enterprise education, and that's for all 24,000 students at the university. So that's really about building skills in creativity, complex problem solving, and also in technology as well. And the other side is entrepreneurship and innovation. So this is for all 24,000 students, but it's also for all alumni. So when you guys graduate, you'll be able to access some of the support we provide, many years to come, as long as you're an alumni. The ventures that we support to scale and grow are primarily outside of research. So Oxford's got a really strong ecosystem of research and innovation, but our work at the Foundry is focused on building this third ecosystem of support for startups that are not related to research. Now, when you get involved in the Foundry, you'll have the opportunity to learn from some of the amazing people that support what we're doing here. So, you can see some of them listed here, but that's everyone from Biz Stone of Twitter, Evan Sharp, who founded Pinterest, to Jeff Wong, Chief Global Innovation Officer of EY, and many more. So these people support by way of mentorship, speaking at events that we run at the Foundry, delivering what will now be online masterclasses, and much more. So great opportunity to tap into the kind of wealth of knowledge and expertise that these sorts of people have. Now, how we support kind of students and alumni, this is how we do it. So whatever stage of the entrepreneurial journey you are at, we will provide support for you. So we focus on sort of 5 core areas. So one is around building entrepreneurial mindset. So that's really around building skills in creativity, problem solving, and so on. 2 is around actually equipping students and alumni with practical skills to help them turn ideas into ventures. 3 is around support with the prototyping, designing, and then 4, if you have a startup, you've got to that stage and you want support to scale it, then we offer an accelerated program to help students and alumni to do that. All of this is complemented by a digital startup school, and we partnered with Creative Live, and through our website you can find a link and sign in when you're a student and access a wealth of amazing sort of resources to support you remotely. So this is sort of how we deliver our experiential learning, and it's a blended approach. So when you get involved in some of the Foundry's workshops, masterclasses, and so on, you know, you can expect to sort of learn from people at different stages, and we find that's quite a powerful sort of approach. So that can be peers teaching you. So that could be a PhD computer scientist teaching you introduction to machine learning, for example. The zone of proximal development is about that learning happens best from people that are just 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. So that could be learning from one of the entrepreneurs that's been through our accelerator program. We have facilitators from industry and academia, such as Rudy here from IBM iX, who teach a range of different courses. And then we have our champions who are established entrepreneurs. So people like Helen Riley, who's the CFO at Google X, and of course the people like the Tim Cooks who come in and inspire through speaker events. So how can we support you at the Foundry? I just want to run through some of the programs that we offer. So one is our creativity series. So we partnered last year with IBM iX to run a series of workshops on to teach design thinking. So really sort of supporting you to identify and start developing ideas and really sort of understanding what could be a promising idea to potentially turn into a venture. The Idea Exploration Series is a series of workshops in the first 2 terms of the academic year. So this is teaching things such as how to plan an MVP, how to talk to users, startup pricing, business model design, branding, and really sort of getting you ready for turning that idea into a venture. Lots of training around technology. So, you know, and this is really focused, a lot of it's focused on that beginner stage. So if you want to gain some skills in coding, machine learning, data science, blockchain, we run some really fantastic workshops around all of that. The All Innovate Idea competition is an initiative that we run at the Foundry. So it's university-wide, and if you develop an idea throughout the academic year, you can submit this idea to the competition and go through a series of steps and potentially secure some grant funding to help you develop it further. For all the women on the call, we run a annual program which is called Elevate Women, and this is to support aspiring leaders and women entrepreneurs through an annual curriculum that includes leadership workshops through some of the people that you saw on the previous image, a pre-accelerator program that runs throughout the summer, so actually helping you to start and go through those initial stages of growing the venture in its early stages, and one-to-one mentoring throughout the academic year. Now, a new initiative that we launched is our Rapid Solutions Builder initiative, and so this is what we developed in response to COVID-19, and it's an online competition where you will submit your early stage solutions, and we will select 4, provide each of those 4 solutions with £10,000 grant funding, and a 2-month program where they get access to masterclasses, one-to-one mentoring, and support from partner organisations. We match them with talent, so Oxford students and alumni that have opted in to volunteer their time to support these solutions. So it's really focused on rapidly scaling these new solutions to challenges we're facing. This year, obviously on COVID-19, next year will be focused on a different theme. And then finally, if you get to the stage where you have a venture and you want to get the support to scale that over a period of time, then we offer the Elevate Accelerator program, which is a pretty intensive curriculum of support to help ventures to grow and scale. We supported 32 ventures so far through that, through 3 different cohorts. The next cohort, so we're into cohort 4, will likely start sort of Q1, Q2 2021. For all of these programs, there's more information on the website, so do check that out. Here's just a bit of an insight into our impact so far. So one of the big benefits for you guys as MBA students in getting involved in the Foundry is it's such a multidisciplinary community. So you'll be working, collaborating with physics students, those studying computer science, and so much more. And there's plenty of stories of people from the business school finding co-founders and things like that through the Foundry. And here you can see some of the support we've had with, some of the impact we've had around venture creation and growth. So as I said, 32 ventures supported through the accelerator, and they've gone on to raise almost 30 million in investment, creating jobs, and so much more. So just to give you a bit of an insight into one of the ventures we have supported, and this venture is doing a huge amount of work at the moment to help tackle the problems we're facing around COVID-19. So they built an online platform that enables clinicians to telephone and video call patients from anywhere. So they've got a lot of NHS patients using this and a lot of clinicians using this across the UK. Obviously, with the situation we're in, it's such a useful platform and means that people can contact their GPs completely remotely. Here you can see some of the impact that we've had in the Foundry so far and some of the great news stories that are coming out. So, do delve into these a bit further and read more about what some of the ventures are doing. And Biz Stone here, actually decided to invest in one of the ventures we supported. So he now sits on their advisory board, and just shows the power of the network when you get involved with the Foundry. And yeah, finally, do once you become a student next academic year, sign up to join the Foundry. It's completely free. As I said, great opportunity to connect with like-minded people from different disciplines across the university, take part in all of our what will be online workshops and events and speaker events going forwards. Check out the entrepreneurship learning platform that I mentioned, and hopefully you guys will decide to start ventures and pursue entrepreneurship as a career pathway going forwards. If you've got any questions, get in touch with us through the info email address at the bottom there, and do check out everything that's on the website for more detail on the programs. So that is it from me. I think we're going to take some questions now. If you've got any, do post them in the chat, and happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jonathan. I think we'll have some more questions come through, and then we'll just do them all at the end, because I think then we'll have a little Q&A at the end of that, if that's fine with you. So for any people that joined just recently, if you do have any questions, there should be a little chat question box where you can just put them, and then we'll get to them and we'll answer them all, hopefully as many as time will allow. If we move on now, I will move over to Chris, if you're ready.
Good afternoon from a very windy and sunny Oxford. Just checking, can everyone hear me okay? I'll take the deafening silence as a yes. Hi, it's nice to meet you all, albeit virtually. So by way of introduction, I'm Chris Blues, and I am the Programme Manager for Social Ventures at the Skoll Centre for Social Entrepreneurship. And essentially, my aim is to try and build as many social businesses from the Oxford ecosystem as possible, as well as trying to build a decent impact investing ecosystem to invest in these ventures at the right time. And essentially what you can see here at the Skoll Centre is we're really working towards a fairer, more sustainable and prosperous world. So I really like this diagram because this kind of describes the journey that we've almost completed. I think we're on. And essentially what we're trying to do is integrate impact across entrepreneurship. So historically, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, social impact, social outcomes were seen as external. They were seen as over there. And you can see that from the diagram on the bottom left. And that kind of aligns to classic philanthropy. And then about 10 years ago, we saw social entrepreneurship as kind of a subset of entrepreneurship. How that represents itself is essentially you saw accelerators and incubators which were dedicated to building social ventures and social businesses. I think comprehensively now what has happened and what we've seen has been, and that has been accelerated, is actually social entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship are essentially synonymous. They are essentially the same thing. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that Jonathan earlier kind of mentioned that they're working with purpose-driven businesses. And this is really exciting for us at Skoll because this is essentially the paradigm shift that we've been working towards building over the last 15 years. So what is a social entrepreneur for us at the Skoll Centre? And we have a very inclusive definition. I think the idea that a social entrepreneur, the idea of being socially enterprising is a verb. That you can be socially entrepreneurial in multiple contexts. You can be socially entrepreneurial, you can start a business, and also you can be socially entrepreneurial in the government setting as well. But for us, what's really important is that as an entrepreneur, when building a venture, you're essentially trying to shift a paradigm. You're trying to create a venture that will essentially change an unfair or unjust system and move it from one paradigm to the next. And no better venture than in our network is by Shrim here, who created an organization called Accomable. And Accomable essentially are the Airbnb working for people who have disabilities. And essentially he worked towards building this organization to kind of increase the transparency and the ability for people who have disabilities to access the services that are similar to Airbnb. And in fact, Airbnb acquired Accomable off the back of this. So I think essentially the key takeaway for us is that we're really looking to build ventures. We're looking to build businesses, that solve the root causes, not just the symptoms of challenges and problems. And for us, there's that link between social entrepreneurship and systems change. So what do we do? So we are embedded within the Saïd Business School, and our mission really aligns to the Saïd Business School as well. I think if you ask Dean Tofano around what's the unique thing about the MBA is that the idea that we understand how to draw carbon from the atmosphere. We understand how to build and motivate people to build business models which incentivize equity, equality, and kind of shared profits. But I think one of the key challenges we do have right now is a deficit of leadership and the right kind of leadership. And that really links into the core offering of the Saïd Business School. This idea around how do we build systems leaders, individuals which really solve problems, the root cause of problems, not just the symptoms. So for us at Skoll, we're kind of contributing through that through three things: education, networks, and research. We work in research, particularly around systems change. We have a project called the Systems Change Observatory, which I won't go into detail. We also work a lot in movement building. We've got a great research project called the Movement of Movements. We also run a series of co-curricular, curricular, and extracurricular programs, which I'll talk about in a minute. And also, we're really thinking about how do we dovetail and drive value and collaborate within networks. So it's really great to have Jonathan and Libby on the call here, who we're working with and really trying to dovetail and contribute to the work they're doing. So we're trying to advance transformative social entrepreneurship through education, networks, and research. And I think it's worth knowing that we're not doing this alone. We have an incredible ecosystem here in Oxford. The Foundry, you've got the OBN networks, which you'll be able to join as part of. We've got the Responsible Business Research Centre. We've got Careers, who are doing an incredible job in this space. We've got the Entrepreneurship Centre. And that's just not to name a few. There's a whole range of incredible organisations all working towards trying to solve systemic problems here in Oxford. And it's a growing and emerging space. It's a really, really exciting time to be part of that ecosystem. So this is what the year looks like. Jonathan mentioned there's a bit up in the air for next year, although I think broadly speaking, these are the kind of core things that we'll be offering. So over the course of the whole year, we run a co-curricular program, Impact Lab, which I'll speak about later. That's essentially a program that you do on top of outside of your curricular program. We also run something called Map the System, which is looking at celebrating groups and organisations that understand the problem in which they're seeking to solve. Essentially, it's the antidote to the classic business pitch competition. We also have a small prize fund called the Skoll Venture Awards. We have a program called the Skoll Venture Builder, which is kind of an accelerated venture builder program that we run 3 times a year. We've got Leading for Impact, which actually looks at you as an individual as a vector for change. So looking actually what is your rationale, what are your motivations? And then of course in March or April, depending on how the timing lies, we've got the big Skoll World Forum, which is over 1,500 people come to Oxford and change Oxford to a beautiful orange. And we celebrate all the successes and have provocative but constructive conversations. So I think for you as a potential MBA, I think the Impact Lab is something worth speaking to. Essentially, this program is co-curricular. It's about 120 hours on top of the MBA program. And we work with a select group of about 50 students and actually help them on their journey towards an impact career. And what we really work towards is having individuals from a range of backgrounds. They might come from banking, they might come from consulting, or they might have already be social entrepreneurs, or they might already work in impact. And really, we're trying to create a strong peer learning environment and provide them with the skills, the resources, and networks they need to actually step forth after the MBA and have an impactful career. I think one program to mention is our curricular programs. This is embedded within the MBA, and this is called Global Opportunities and Threats Oxford. It launched in 2014, and this has been a huge success this year. And this really links together a few key elements, which is around systems analysis, human-centered design, scenario planning, negotiation, and this all culminates in us working with MBAs to be true systems thinkers and also systems leaders. So really aligning to the idea and the core value proposition for us at Skoll is, let's really understand the problem before we seek to understand the solutions and choose a solution. And how that plays out over the course of the year is that we have a pre-course work, we kind of have this foundation phase where we have this kind of launch week where we accelerate it. And then really that kind of accelerates you into kind of a flair and focus, this idea of kind of exploring the problem, actually seeking to understand that. And that's done through a series of workshops, mentoring. And then once you understand the problem itself, then you can focus on the specific symptom of the problem and actually present at something called the Go-To Summit. So this year we had the Go-To Summit about 2 weeks ago. We were very fortunate to have Al Gore present and host that event. So it really is a high profile opportunity for MBAs to present to the world their skill sets, their intention, but also actually so tangibly that they understand the problems that they want to solve. I'll skip over Map the System, but Map the System is fairly similar to the Go-To program, except it's our global competition. So we work with around 55 universities around the world. They all run a Map the System competition where they all celebrate and use a methodology to understand the problem they're seeking to solve. And that all culminates in the global finals, where we bring all the finalists to Oxford for a global competition where we get individuals to step on stage from all these different universities, not just MBAs, to say, hey, look, this is actually the problem, this is the system, and here are the leverage points within that. So it's a really exciting time, which is really interdisciplinary. Leading for Impact. This is a smaller, more intimate learning program. It's run by my colleague Bronwyn. And this is actually looking at using a whole range of different facilitation techniques, often in nature, often working in a situation where you can have honest and authentic conversations around, what is it that you truly love? What is it that you truly, what are your gifts? And I think lastly, what are your responsibilities? So we kind of work through a process together over the course of the year. And this isn't just for MBAs, this is actually a selective process where we bring in students from across the University of Oxford. It's a really powerful program and you'll be able to join this as part of your MBA next year. Lastly, moving towards the end, I mentioned that part of my role is thinking about how to accelerate the growth of social businesses, and the key part of it is actually how do we build the right type of finance to invest in social businesses. Currently, it's called the Skoll Venture Awards, and we have £50,000, even though it says 30,000 there, to invest in early stage, high risk social businesses. And we also bring some elements of systems entrepreneurship here. So we want to invest in businesses that actually solve systemic problems. Next year, we're going to increase it, supercharge it, so it might evolve into something bigger, but at the very least it will be an opportunity for you to actually pitch your venture to win up to £50,000 in investment, which is really exciting. Of course, I mentioned the Skoll World Forum. Unfortunately, it was cancelled. Well, it was shifted to online this year, which was frustrating, but also led to huge opportunities. I think we managed to work with the Skoll Foundation to shift it from an in-person conference to a virtual conference in 3 weeks, which was really exciting. And of course, if you are located in Oxford, you can join us and be part of that kind of experience, which is really exciting. There's also, in the same week, a conference called Marmalade, which is actually a more community-driven, community-based conference, and it's slightly more inclusive, which is fantastic, and also you have the opportunities to contribute and join those conversations as well. I mentioned this earlier. This is an example of a piece of research that we're doing as part of our research objectives. And the Systems Change Observatory is really looking retrospectively at businesses, at social ventures that have received funding from the Skoll Foundation, and really asking the question, to what extent do we honestly affect systems change through business? And it's called an observatory because it's an exploration. We don't really know the answer yet. I think what's really exciting for me as kind of a venture builder, as a person creating the investment structures, is how do we design for systems change? How do we create the right structures and processes and get the right people at the table to actually intentionally do this? And Systems Change Observatory is the first step for us to actually understand how to do that more effectively. And our work, it's all intrinsically linked. Our research contributes to our education programs, which contribute to our networks, and they all kind of cross-pollinate and benefit each other to create a really great learning experience, but also a really exciting conversations. So I'll leave you there. Feel free to reach out. I think the best thing to do is to join our socials or email us at the Skoll Centre, sbs.ox.act.uk. And yeah, happy to answer any questions after Libby's done her presentation. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Chris. I can see there are great questions coming through, so keep them going, and we'll change over for Libby to tell us a little bit more about the Entrepreneurship Centre.
Thank you both. Let me just bring my presentation up. Can you all see that okay, I hope? Yeah? Okay, great. So welcome everybody. Thank you, Jonny and Chris. Great to hear more about the Foundry and the Skoll Centre. So as Francisca shared at the beginning, my name is Libby Wood. I lead on programs for the Entrepreneurship Centre. The Entrepreneurship Centre, we sit within the business school. We are a department of the business school. And so today I'll be taking you through what we do, how we do it, and how our MBA students can get involved with us year in, year out. So what is our mission? So the Entrepreneurship Centre, our mission is really to support Saïd Business School students and alumni in pursuing their entrepreneurial ambitions. And we do this, I've just got a message that you can't see my webcam. I'm hoping that you can still see this fine.
We can still see your slides, so it should be fine.
You can see it?
Yeah, the slides are all there, so we can see those.
Okay, lovely. And we do this through 3 different ways. So the first is really through experiential learning. So as the lead program manager, this is where I'm heavily focused, but we also have a component of thought leadership as well as access to relevant networks. I'm sure when you've been looking at Oxford, network elements is really a strong part of Oxford, and also Chris was sharing as well about the richness of the ecosystem, and especially, you know, the Entrepreneurship Centre, we've been around for probably 15 years now, and initially this was more a research centre, but of course as entrepreneurship and innovation has developed and expanded, I would say probably 2/3 of what we do is very program focused and student focused as well. So to talk you through, first of all, on the experiential learning parts and what you can get involved in, I've divided these up between structured programs, but also more adjunct. So on structured programs, I'm aware you're getting a lot of information today, so I'm touching on these, and in the questions afterwards, we can go into more details about them, and a lot of it is available on our website as well. So throughout the year between Michaelmas, Hillary and Trinity, we run structured programs such as these, which touch on the different stages of the entrepreneurial journey. And when we talk about entrepreneurship within the Centre, we're referring not only to, of course, starting up a business, coming up with great ideas, but we're also looking at that corporate innovation space as well, and you can see on there the Entrepreneurship series. So Ideation Lab very much focused on what are the techniques, skills coming up with great ideas. The Entrepreneurship series, which we're actually running this term, looking at challenges within organisations, and how do you use that entrepreneurial mindset in a more complex structure. Of course, in a startup, often the issue is money. In an organisation, that's not often the case, but you have more barriers potentially to innovation. A programme that you may be more familiar with is the Oxford Saïd Fund. For those of you who are interested in the investment world, in venture capital, or potentially understanding investment from the investor side because you're interested in starting up a business. So the Oxford Saïd Fund is a year-long programme. So we have a team of MBA students. Traditionally, that's been around 11 students. So it's a student-led fund. We've historically invested around £50,000 each year in Oxford-affiliated businesses. And the students really, they source the deals, they conduct the due diligence, they work together with an advisory board to ultimately make that investment decision. So it's a highly popular program. On the flip side, it has a double function. So if you're interested to play the role of the investor joining the team, but on the other side, it's also a funding opportunity. So if there are also, potentially we have MBA students who apply for funding to be a part of the portfolio. So we have about 15 ventures. And so that's a really great way to again, be part of that more wider ecosystem and understand investment in more detail. The CDL student program, so one thing I didn't mention, I've also got my colleague Julia on the call. She's a program manager within the Entrepreneurship Centre, and the CDL student program is actually something that she leads on, and I'll touch more about this a bit later on in the presentation. Chris in his last presentation mentioned about the GoTo project and how that's a curricular component for MBAs. Of course, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Entrepreneurship project, which is a compulsory component, and our MBA students this year will be doing their final presentations on Tuesday. And so we really see our program offering, especially if you're looking at the Ideation Lab or the Entrepreneurship series, as how we can complement in your lead up to the Entrepreneurship project. So we organise other sessions as well, we source the panelists, so we really help you to prepare better for that project and hopefully continue your idea and your business venture going forward. Finally, the idea to impact is an example of a structured program. So this is where we bring postdoctoral and postgraduate students together with executive MBAs and MBAs through the strategy and innovation program to understand how to commercialize on research. And finally, I've got the image there of the Libby project, and this is one of our newest initiatives that we've launched, and I'll share more about that a bit later. In terms of ad hoc events, these will range from maybe more hackathon style events, more sort of fast-paced design thinking challenges like the EIT Health Innovation Day. We bring in fantastic guest speakers that we might showcase through our Entrepreneurship Centre Power series. To give you an example, we've had Tom Blomfield, co-founder of Monzo. We've had Alex Cruz, the CEO of British Airways. So really the more inspirational level speakers. We also run a series of networking events. And then finally, probably our biggest event of the year is the Oxford Saïd Entrepreneurship Forum, or OSEF as we refer to it. We ran the OSEF in beginning of March, so that was probably the last big convening event before everything started to lock down. Normally I a video. What I'll do is I'll share that with Samantha and Francisco, and hopefully they can share that around, but today that is not available to show. But this just gives you an idea of the companies that we have. It's a series of keynote speakers. So this year we welcomed Anusha Ansari, who is the CEO of the X Prize Foundation. We had head of new business from Universal Music Group, Olivia Robert Murphy. And then these are the keynote speakers. And then we run a series of panel discussions. So, you know, anything from gaming to food waste to space and beyond to moonshot investing. There's really something for everyone. There's a pitching competition as well. And so hopefully if we see you next year, this is also something that you can take part in, all being well. Moving on to the access to networks that I mentioned about at the beginning of the presentation. So Own Network is really what we call your go-to support community, and this is available to you while you are an MBA on the program, but also as an alumni as well. The network, as it says here, is an international community of, we have entrepreneurs and business leaders, and they can work closely with you both during the program as well as afterwards, and this is really to give you access to those great networks. So we have 53 experts currently on the network from 15 countries. So, you know, we're well aware that after graduation, people go off to around the world. And so our experts are also representative of that as well. And these are also across 13 industries. Just gives you an idea of just some of the industries that our experts come from. And each year also expand the network as well. In terms of how you can engage with the network, so you can even go on the website now and just get an idea of the sense of who these people are, but they can do one-to-one advisory sessions as well as workshops and masterclasses. They're also panelists on the Entrepreneurship Project. They run parts of our programs, whether that's the Ideation Lab that I mentioned before or the Entrepreneurship Series, as well as industry-specific events. My colleague Serena runs that program there. Finally, this is one of our newer initiatives. So the Creative Destruction Lab, Oxford, we launched this program back in September, and some of you may already be familiar with the Creative Destruction Lab. It's a program that was started in Toronto. And it's really a program for massively scalable seed stage science-based companies to grow. So it's a 9-month program. We have 25 ventures, or we had 25 ventures in the cohort this year focused on artificial intelligence. And you can see the impact that this program's had internationally since it was founded. So of course, Oxford, the first site outside of North America, and we'll be opening up 2 new streams this coming September. The student program, so if there's questions about this, I'm sure Julia can jump in later. So this is an opportunity for MBA students to get involved in the program, so to support the ventures that are going through this 9-month process. So it's a really great opportunity for you to see how a startup can grow, how you can support its development. So we have students who, you know, are advising the ventures, who are bringing their own skills to help them develop further. So as you can see, we've got students who have an interest in entrepreneurship, but maybe also have consulting backgrounds as well. And finally, the Libby project. So I think what's great about the Entrepreneurship Centre is that we should be in a position that we can respond quickly. And I think this situation that we found ourselves in with COVID-19 also allows for us to be innovative. So the Libby project was launched less than a month ago now. And this is 35 businesses. So they vary from SMEs, startups, scale-ups. And what we've done is, we recognise that our students are facing a very different job market coming out, and so we wanted to kind of match the challenges that businesses have faced in light of COVID-19 and how we can match them up with our students to provide support. So we're offering a series of internships for credit, the opportunity to be part of these business units, working together with executive MBA students, industry experts, and this is going to be going for the next 4 months. So yeah, just another way that we innovate quickly, we put on new initiatives, often at short notice as well, but happy to talk more in the question times. And then, yeah, I think the best way to stay in touch with us is really through our social media channels. And I'm sure if there's further questions after this session, then Samantha and Francisca can share email addresses around as well. But yes, that's everything for me. So looking forward to hopefully seeing you in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Libby. And thank you, Jonathan and Chris, as well, for your presentations. I know a few people were experiencing some technical difficulties with that. So hopefully after we've turned off everyone's webcams, the connection was a little bit stronger. But we will be sending the recording around to everyone. So if you were struggling to hear a little bit, hopefully the recording will be a tiny bit clearer. So thank you for bearing with us. It's one of the challenges of working remotely at the moment. Obviously, we'd all usually rather be in person at the Foundry, or maybe all doing this live from a seminar room together in the business school. So when we're all dialing in from home, you never quite know what we're going to get with our internet connections. So thanks for bearing with us. We've got quite a few questions coming through, which is really wonderful. So we'll start with some of the first questions to come through, which are most likely for you, Jonny, and directed towards the Foundry and the initiatives that the Foundry has. So one of the first questions we have is, what opportunities are there for an MBA student who would like to get involved in academic research on social and impact investment?
I think that might be a question for Chris.
Yeah, cool. Chris, take it away.
Hi, can you hear me? I think.
Yes,
yeah.
thank you.
So there are the best way to describe it. So the research project that I mentioned, System Change Observatory, is one which is driven by Skoll, but what we do is we work in collaboration with professors like Alex Nichols and other professors such as Richard Barker. So essentially there are lots of opportunities to collaborate, have those conversations and engage, but they are slightly more ad hoc in nature at this time. Yeah, I'm afraid there's not a comprehensive program as yet, but by simply just being part of the ecosystem, having coffees with these individuals in the common room, rubbing shoulders with them, I think good opportunities will emerge depending on what's your interest in social investment, impact investment, and your kind of research methodology. So it's emerging and slightly ad hoc at the moment, but there's lots of opportunities, definitely.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris. I do have another question. This one is definitely for Jonny, though. It says, is the yearly go-to project and the Foundry support interconnected in some way?
Yeah, there is. So there is synergy. So the theme of go-to this year was climate change, and so there was a lot of support through the business school and programming related to go-to, and something the Foundry ran was a hackathon. So three-day hackathon style competition focused on how we could use AI to combat climate change. So with the knowledge that the MBAs are developing throughout the go-to program, they can then apply that in a really practical way, and build teams with students from across the university, and obviously engage with some amazing mentors and some of them, one executive MBA was part of the winning team that then received some funding and is now working on that solution that they developed throughout the Impact Weekend full time. So I guess that goes to show how you can develop knowledge throughout the Go to apply it practically through a sort of hackathon style competition at the Foundry, and then potentially sort of do that full time following that. I don't know, Libby, if you've got want to add in on that.
Yeah, I think as you said, Jonny, I think there are certain initiatives that we sort of are interlinked on, and others that are not. But I think the main thing is that we're always able to direct people to the right places and the right people.
Great, thank you guys. The next question has two parts. One hopefully is a little bit easier to answer than the other. So the first part is, how many MBA students start a venture in the UK per year? So you might not know the exact numbers, but I guess a rough percentage of how many MBA students go on to stay and kickstart a venture. The second part of the question is asking, what is the immigration policy for international students to start companies after their studies? So we may not be able to answer that one. It will be very dependent on, I assume, every student's specific nationality, their visa requirements, and the startup that they're launching. So we might not be able to tackle that one. But yeah, if anyone has any indication of how many roughly MBA students per year start a venture, that would be wonderful.
So
I can answer. Oh, go on.
sorry, I can talk from a university standpoint. Sorry, Libby. If this gives you some insight, so you know, surveys done every year on the sort of 17,000 or so incoming students into the university. One of the questions they get asked is, you know, are you interested in starting a business? You know, and that percentage of the students that are coming in, that's increasing year on year. So 2 years ago, it was 16%, last year 18%, now 20% of the student body are keen to pursue entrepreneurship as a career pathway. Doesn't directly answer your question, but hopefully gives you some insight around that. Libby?
Yeah, the only other thing I was going to say is, you know, when the class comes in, we normally survey the class, you know, from an entrepreneurship point of view, and I would say it's normally about a third who are interested in pursuing entrepreneurship. Now, I think having the entrepreneurship project as a core component, we find a lot of students who maybe in the beginning not so interested in, by going through the entrepreneurship project, find that it's something they want to go into further. So we're actively tracking that at the moment to monitor, you know, students who go through the entrepreneurship project and taking that idea on, you know, further post program. To answer the question, the second part of that question, there is the graduate startup visa, which the university is actively involved in. So I would suggest, you know, looking into that, and I think the careers department have quite a lot of information on that. And when I say the careers department, I mean the university careers department. So they can probably provide you some guidance on that as well in terms of what the criteria are.
I mean, just to add to that, my experience is more anecdotal. But, I'd say about 15% of the MBA class, so it's about 50 students, I mentor through building a social business or an inclusive business. So these are individuals that are practically looking to build a business during and after the MBA. So yeah, those are the numbers that I've seen in the last year. And the best person to speak to from careers, I think, is Jonathan Black. He'll be able to give you more information about the startup visa.
Thanks, guys. I have another question for Jonny here, and it says, if you have any co-founders outside of the course, are they able to participate in the workshops from the Foundry?
Sorry, could you repeat that? Sorry, broke up a bit.
If you have any co-founders outside of the course, are they able to participate in the workshops?
Oh, so co-founders that perhaps are not part of the university?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so yes and no. So when I talked about the two focus areas of the Foundry, the enterprise education piece and then the entrepreneurship piece, which is focused around building and scaling startups. So if you fall in the latter, you've got a startup and your co-founder is not part of the university, then you would still be eligible to take part in the Elevate Accelerator program, the 6-month program that I mentioned. Also the Elevate Women pre-accelerator program as well. The rule there is that just one of the one member of the founding team needs to have that Oxford connection. The rest can be from anywhere. So I hope that answers your question.
Excellent, thanks, Jonny. We have another question which I think was more in line with Chris's part of the presentation. So this one is asking, was the curriculum for the technical training, so coding and machine learning, etc., designed or maintained by the Oxford Foundry? Oh, I'm sorry, it is for you, Jonny. Or was this developed by external entities?
Yeah, so in short, external entities. So we had so a combination of university academics, people in industry, and occasionally it's a really sort of talented PhD student who delivers this kind of training. But predominantly, for example, Introduction to AI was delivered by one of the academic leads for teaching artificial intelligence. And he's a published author and so on. So pretty high quality training, yeah.
Thank you, Jonny. I have another question for you. So someone has asked if they'd like to learn, or if you'd like to learn coding while at Oxford as a tool for analysis. Do you think that you can achieve this just through the workshops at the Foundry, or should they seek out a course?
I think the introduction to Python coding is quite comprehensive, and you can actually come to that, and they encourage you to come to that with sort of end goal that you want to get from the workshop series. So if that is to improve your ability to do data analysis with sort of set pieces of data, then I think by all means, by the end of that, you should be able to have the sort of the skills and understanding to do that. But I think there's also they encourage sort of wider reading and learning around that, and direct the students to videos and so on that can be of support. So yeah, I hope that answers it.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to stop guessing who the questions are for, and I'm just going to read them out this time. So how are participants selected to join Leading for Impact?
Jonny, that's for you. I'm joking. I think it's probably for me. Yeah, so it is a selective process. It's essentially an application and an interview process. It is fairly competitive because it's not just for MBAs, it's also for undergrads, grads, and postgrads. Yeah, it's a application and interview process. And I think the reason why that's the case is that it's very important that group of individuals, we get the right dynamic, and there's a good diversity of viewpoints. So it's something we're looking to think about how to scale next year, but it is a selective process.
Thank you, Chris. I think I have another one for you. It is about the competition you mentioned earlier from the Skoll Centre, and I think someone was wondering if there's only one winner for the £50,000 prize you mentioned, or if there's several winners for that.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
So, yeah, absolutely. Good question. So the Skoll Venture Award is each year we have normally 2 winners, one of which is so this year. We're going to invest 40,000 into one winner, and then there's an audience prize of 10,000. So we have been limited by the amount of money in the fund, although saying that this time next year things might be slightly different. So it is a challenge prize competition, but I think we have such demand and such high quality ventures coming through that'd be great to potentially add another 0 onto that, and be able to give lots of £40,000 to £50,000 investments. you know, that competition is open to all students, current students, all alumni, and even staff and faculty of Oxford. So we get applications from all over the world. So it's fairly competitive, but hopefully next year we'll be able to make more than just 1 or 2 investments.
Excellent, thank you, Chris. I have a question here from a 1+1 student, which is really great to see. And they have asked which activities they'd be able to join at the Skoll Centre in the first year. So for those who don't know what the 1+1 is, it's a 2-year program where you do a master's in the first year and then the MBA in your second year.
Yeah, so what we've done, so myself and my colleague Bronwyn, who leads Leading for Impact and the Impact Lab, we've really sat down and tried to think about what elements of our programming and courses can we be more inclusive. As a 1+1 student, you'll be able to take part in parts of Impact Lab, which are open actually to the wider Oxford community. So classically how that might work is we have on a Tuesday night a 3-hour masterclass. And then the first hour is open to people in our network, and you'd be able to come to that. So, example, this year we had a really great storytelling workshop from a woman who runs TEDx in London. And then after that hour, it's more of a smaller conversation with those that are on Impact Lab. But we're definitely trying to open up our programs, the conversations to a range of individuals. And another example is we're running and created something called the Skoll Chat series. This year, we have an incredible social entrepreneur in residence called Tara Saber. We talk and work in gender lens finance, equity finance, and knowledge equity and lived experience. And those kinds of conversations are open to everybody. You know, we want to try and open it up as much as possible. So you're more than welcome to join us as part of that conversation.
Great, thank you. There are a couple of questions along the same line, so I'm trying to work them all together in one. But there have been a couple of questions about basically at what point in time candidates can access all the resources, and also whether people can be involved with all 3 centres at the same time, or how that would usually work. If you can maybe talk a little bit about that.
From the Entrepreneurship Centre's point of view in terms of accessing resources, so a lot of the things you can already start to have a look at on the website. You can see, for example, who the experts are on their own network and get an idea of the different programs that potentially you'd like to be involved in. I think, and unless, depending on what Jonny and Chris think, I think it really depends on what you want to do while you are on your program. It's definitely not the case, and I think Chris's presentation really highlights that. You know, you don't have to just choose whether you go down the social entrepreneurship route or you go down the Entrepreneurship Centre route. Absolutely not. I think there's so many different things going on that, you know, whether it's an ad hoc event and then a more structured program and then something going on at the Foundry as well. You know, it really depends on what you want to commit your time to throughout the year.
Yeah, I think to add to that, there's so many journeys that people take over the course of the MBA. Some individuals come in with already, you know, they've already exited their first business. Some are trying to transition from consulting. Some are transitioning to consulting. I think broadly speaking, what we do, and that's why it's great to work with Libby and Jonathan, is try and dovetail as much as possible into each other's programs. I think broadly speaking, we try and follow kind of a flair and focus over the course of the MBA program. So Michaelmas term leading into second term are more exploratory, where you can just draw on and follow your curiosity and energy, and you know, Go To is a great example of that phase. And then the focus phase is really thinking, and this links into the entrepreneurship project and maybe potentially into the Elevate Accelerator with the Foundry around, okay, so what do you want to build, what do you want to do? And that's more towards the end, and that's why the venture awards is at the end, because we're trying to incentivize MBAs to aim towards that point where they have a tangible business that they validated at the end of the entrepreneurship project. So yeah, I think broadly speaking, it's hard to do for everybody, and but we do try and incentivize kind of flaring and then focusing over the course of the MBA year. But yeah, we're trying to be as collaborative as possible.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, you know, it really depends what your goals are, and you know, what stage in your entrepreneurial journey you are. But as Chris said, and Libby said as well, you know, a lot of the programs do overlap and complement one another, and ventures might receive a grant through the Skoll Venture Awards, and also be on the Elevate Accelerator program. That's just one example of many where you know, you can benefit from the range of programs on offer from the 3 centres.
Excellent, thank you everyone. I appreciate we've gone a couple of minutes over time. We do still have a couple of questions. So Jonathan and Libby and Chris, if you're okay to stay on for a couple more minutes, that would be wonderful. But if you do need to go, you're welcome to sign off, and we can just answer the remaining questions as best we can. I've got one question here asking, do the social entrepreneurship initiatives also focus on impact outside of Europe, like Latin America, for example? How wide is your impact scope?
Global, truly global, and increasingly so. And it's really driven in part by the alumni network. And so part of the work we do, we have the Skoll Scholarship, and individuals go back or work in a whole range of communities. The Venture Awards itself, 50% of the applications come from outside the UK. So we kind of work at, you know, in that duality of both locally and globally, but yeah, we are not focused on any geographic region. In fact, we're trying to incentivize the dialogue and the cross-pollination of ideas across geographies. Yeah, historically we've been kind of outcome agnostic or geography agnostic, but our networks are becoming increasingly global and across the world. Latin America is, I think this year we had, if I remember correctly, 6% of applications for the Skoll Venture Awards from that area. So it'd be great to, if you're interested in that area, to work with you and think about how do we increase that. But also we have, as part of the alumni, SBS alumni, they have kind of chapter leads and individuals that kind of work in those networks, and that is a really great kind of leverage point where we can join the dots and connect people during their MBA with those alumni to kind of work together and build up those connections. So yeah, truly global, and we want to keep it and make it more global.
Thank you, Chris. I have one last question here. It is, can I leverage on entrepreneurship to learn how to upscale my existing business back home, or is it necessary to have a fresh new idea or startup?
Well, I'd say very much that you can come here to Oxford, develop some skills and connections to the right people, and that would very much support what you're doing back home. So you know, very much depends on what you'd like to do. Equally, if you want to start a fresh venture with a new idea, then the support's there as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think the entrepreneurship project, you know, we have a lot of students who come who already have a business idea, and they know that they want to work on that through the entrepreneurship project, which is essentially, you know, understanding your market, your competition, customer interviews, and really getting the financials ready as well. So really an extensive business plan. So we see a lot of students coming already on the program with a business idea that they want to work with. Now you just have to convince 4 other MBAs to work on that with you. But definitely you can work on an existing business idea. And also when you're going to different sessions, you can definitely have that existing business in mind when you're doing that, in as much as, like Jonny said, you can also, you know, if there's something else you're looking to explore, you know, for example, the ideation lab, we actively encourage people that don't have a business idea to come on that program, so that you can kind of start with that blank canvas and build something from nothing and come out of the program with an idea, hopefully.
Excellent, thank you guys. We might wrap up there then. We've gone a tiny bit over time, so thank you everyone for being so engaged and for sending through your wonderful questions, and a huge thank you to Chris, Julia, Jonathan and Libby for joining us, and for Franzi for putting this together. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties we had. Hopefully the recording is a little bit clearer. I'll send that round, and I'll also include the email addresses of the centres so that if you did have any questions, you can get in touch. We'll also share the video that Libby wasn't able to share today. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope wherever you are dialing in from today that you and your families are safe and well. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in contact with us. I hope you all have a really lovely weekend, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.